Welcome to CPG Vibes. No scripts,
just chat.
I'm Alex Baer.
And I'm Wade Yenny.
Each episode is recorded live, and we talk all things food and beverage, and so much more.
Feel our vibe and search for CPG Vibes on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and make sure to give us a 5-star review.
If you'd like to sponsor our show with your product or service, email us at cpgvibes100@gmail.com.
Now, let's vibe.
All right, welcome to episode 143 of CPG Vibes, the Master Series, Special Edition Volume 4. Just cracked open some product from Perfy. They just sent some over to me. It's a L-theanine ashwagandha boost mood, not blood sugar. So it's a functional soda from Perfy, and I'm having their Dr. Perfy, so I love it. Straight out the gate. Wade, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Alex. I'm doing good. And you have Perfy, I don't, and that's fine because Vasa put my face on a shirt last year, and I bet you don't have one of those.
He put your face on his shirt? When did this happen? Tell me the story behind this.
He that was his pitch at Expo. He had a number of buyers, myself, I think, Sprouts was on there, and a number of buyers were on it, and he had several shirts produced for buyers that he was trying to pitch. So,
well, now that you're not a buyer anymore, has he removed you from that shirt? That's the question.
Well, I have the shirt in my closet. So,
he gave it to you.
Oh yeah, exactly. So you enjoy your beverage. That's okay. I've got a shirt, so we'll call it even.
Wow. Check fucking mate right there, man. Oh my God. Like each week I usually have the one up on you because I get the product and you don't. And this week it just came out of nowhere. You had that ace up your sleeve.
Had I known you were going to have the drink on camera, I would have wore the shirt, but that's okay.
Yeah, I wanted to surprise you, and then now you surprise me even more. So
you know what I have up my sleeve.
Yeah, definitely. Well, welcome to our special edition episode. It's the Master Series. These are coveted. These only come by, once every 3 or 4 months or so. We do that on purpose because we bring on just highly regarded, great, I would call them icons, but I don't want to inflate Will's ego more than it already is. But these are great people that know their stuff in the CPG space, and I consider them legends. So our guest today will be Will Nitze, because I already mentioned his name. I mentioned it twice. I'm giving him so much credit here. Will Nitze with IQ Bar. He's the CEO and founder. And then we have Tom Hicks, who's the Chief Commercial Officer of Zico Rising. And then Ben Mann with Guayaki, right?
Nicely done. You got it.
Guayaki. Okay, I'm still probably mispronouncing it. I've been calling it Guayaki for many, many years, and I realized I met Ben in person for an event actually up in San Luis Obispo. It was a entrepreneurship event, and he's like, it's actually not that pronunciation. Like, oh, okay.
That's probably a funny marketing campaign in there somewhere, like how many different ways there are to pronounce it, because I've heard at least 4 or 5 myself, and I think you just said 3 of them. So I think there's probably some fancy marketing scheme you could do there.
There is. I think, when Ben said, just call it Yerba Mate or Yerb for short. It's like that one, you won't fuck that one up. All right. No, he never said that. So we're to go into our, our just checklist, laundry list of items that we're going to mention here. First off, we are the #1 rated CPG podcast in the world. Make sure to keep it that way. Go to Apple Podcast. Make sure to give us 5 stars. It's pretty easy. How long does it take to give us 5 stars?
Probably 5 seconds. Probably
5 seconds, about the time.
Oh, if somebody in the audience could do it right now and tell us how long it takes. But
that's right. The time it took for me to open a delicious Perfy, you can be giving us a 5-star review. So go on Apple Podcasts. There's a link right there. If you're listening on a recording, you just go to your iPhone. Hopefully you have an iPhone, and then go to the podcast app. Scroll all the way down. Search CPG Vibes. Scroll all the way down. Click 5 stars. We also have sponsorship and block rates. So they're filling up for Q1 of 2025, believe it or not. Wait, remember in the old days, we would be like, yeah, we're filled up for the next week, and we have the next 5 weeks open after that. It's how things have picked up a lot. Now we're booked out several months in advance, and we're doing something right on the show.
Good problem to have. It's a good problem to have.
It's a great problem to have. I have that problem every day. And so we are booked out for the rest of this year, booked out for most of January. But if you want to grab February or March, make sure to email us at cpgvibes100@gmail.com. And then we also have our backwall sponsors. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention them, and we're really happy for them. So we have Melting Forest, who has a campaign running on Start Engine. We have Feel Free, which is a kava kratom a tonic shot for mood lift and energy and focus. And we have Ginger Labs, which is a ginger shot, GNGR. So good spelling on that. I like it. And then we have our ongoing sponsor, and our ongoing sponsor is Range Me. And Range Me is the smartest way to get your brand in front of thousands of retailers, experience always on brand exposure, exclusive buyer discovery opportunities, and access to proprietary insights, research, and resources. With over 15,000 buyers, Range Me ensures continuous exposure to retail buyers from top retailers like Target, Albertsons, Whole Foods, Sprouts, Publix, Kroger, Costco, Wegmans, H-E-B, Food Line, Giant Foods, Fresh Market, even Jimbo's, right? You know, Jimbo's is a smaller store with now I think a fifth store, right? Opening, I believe.
2 in the works, but not open. I think one's, I believe, 25, one in 26.
Wow. So Jimbo is he's busy. He's busy. So 4 stores right now, 6 by 2026. They got Jimbo's and many other retailers to get an opportunity to present your product through an online portal, and then also you get in-person FaceTime, and that's through the where is it here? I lost my ECRM category sessions. Delivering exclusive live in-person events where you can meet directly with leading national and regional retail buyers for curated face-to-face meetings. Elevate your brand now. Go to rangeme.com/cpgvibes. And if you fill out that form, we have a contest running. It's for 2 more weeks. Anyone that fills out this form can win a $13.99 value membership for premium membership to Range Me. You fill out the form that you're interested. No obligation. You get entered into a drawing. So make sure it's a no freaking brainer to do that. And by filling out the form, even if you don't win the contest, you still get 30% off for their premium and pro memberships. And for a couple $1,000 a year, I mean, $16.99, I think is the max. That's a rounding error for most brands. Rangeme.com/CPG vibes. And we have our YouTube channel. Which Wade will quickly upload it right after we end the live show. And that is at youtube.com/@. You have to put the little @ thing in there, CPG Vibes. And am I missing? And then we have our weekly sponsor. How can I forget them, right? Didn't eat my IQ bar yet today. So we have our weekly sponsor, which is Waleed Nasruddin with WN Dean Advisory. They're really an operations advisory firm, and it's a boutique agency. He's giving away a prize, by the way. So it's going to be a free 30-minute strategy call with Waleed himself. And guess what? Perfy, my good friend that you mentioned earlier, Vasa, he has a campaign launching soon that we worked on for crowdfunding. We're not going to tell you what it is yet, but it's going to be launching in the next week or so to raise capital online to fuel his business. And he's giving away a 12-pack of Perfy soda. And I have Dr. Perfy, Tropical Citrus, and Fruit Punch. I'm missing the 4th SKU, but the yuzu lime one, but I got 3 of the 4 here. So make sure to stick around. End of the show, we'll give away a 12-pack of Perfy plus a free 30-minute strategy session with Waleed. And if you're going your CPG brand, eliminate stockouts, optimize inventory, streamline your supply chain operations, WN Dean Advisory is the go-to partner. Led by operations expert Waleed Nasruddin. They specialize in demand planning, inventory management. These are all small things, Wade, that don't have no effect on anyone's business, right? SOP strategies. I'm being sarcastic, by the way. These are incredibly important. And for anyone who misinterpret what I said, it's incredibly important. Forecasting, your need for hands-on operational support. They have the solutions to take your business to the next level. WNDeanAdvisory.com or just on LinkedIn. Crucial stuff. I've referred many clients over to Waleed, and he's helped them to save thousands, tens of thousands of dollars optimizing inventory, demand planning, making sure you're not stuck with too much inventory or too little, right, to fill POs, which I know you love that being a buyer, right, where POs were, it was the best thing ever, right?
Waleed knows his stuff, and if you're not, I put his LinkedIn link up in the chat. If you're not following him or connected with him, I'd encourage you to do so. He puts out good content pertaining to everything Alex just talked about: operations, supply chain, Good guy for sure.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to be bringing on our guests now. We always want to be on time, and we're at the 15 mark. And so we're introducing, without further ado, I already put Will first, so I'm going to put him second or third here in the introductions here. So we have Ben Mann. So he is the CEO of Guayaki Yerba Mate. We have Tom Hicks. He is the Chief Commercial Officer of Zico Rising, we call them, the coconut water. And Will Nitze. He is the founder and CEO of IQ Bar. How you guys doing?
Wonderful.
All good.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome.
And we're going to adjust on the spot here to try to make the screens somewhat bigger. We do everything. We don't know what the hell we're doing on this show.
I can tell.
Is that better? It's a little better. I like that. For those that are not watching live, I just moved the screens of each person to optimize it. And we did no setup, no planning. I literally asked Will about an hour ago. I'm like, we need a third guest. Can you come on? He's like, sure. Why not? So here we are. So we're going to do a round table here and just have everyone introduce themselves. And the tradition we have, which we tell no one about, we don't prep you for any of this. Just like a debate, right? There's no prep questions, right? Yeah, right. Ben's like, no, definitely. So we're going to go around the room, starting with Ben, clockwise, and introduce yourself, and then tell us one thing about you that probably maybe no one knows, right? Something surprising.
All right. So Ben Mann, CEO, as you said, of Guayaki Yerba Mate. For those of you looking to know how to pronounce it, that is how you pronounce it. For those of you who are not familiar, yerba mate is a plant, and the leaves of which are caffeinated, similar to a tea, but it's actually not part of the tea family. It's part of the holly family. So we harvest the leaves, we dry them, we mill them, we sell it loose so people can put it into a gourd, which is how it's traditionally consumed in places like Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, parts of Brazil, or you make it in a French press. But we also brew it and sell it as a liquid, so as a beverage. So most commonly in cans, but we do it in glass as well. So that's a little bit about me. What is surprising that most people may not know? I've probably hitchhiked about 100 times in my life.
Wow.
When was the most recent time?
Not for a long time. I was back in like college and whatnot.
Wow. What was like the weirdest hitchhiking experience, real quick?
I did a lot of it in Europe just because I was a student and I wanted to move around or whatever. But I was a waiter at a gourmet Italian restaurant while I was in college, and the buses stopped running around 10:30 at night. And if I had some late tables, I didn't get done in time, and so I'd have to get back downtown. I didn't have a car, so I would hitchhike. And one of the times I was standing by the gas station, and a car was going this way. And they saw I was hitchhiking, and then it did a U-turn. And I was like, ooh, this is not necessarily a good sign. But
nope.
I got in.
It can be good or bad.
It was, I think it was 3 women in the car, and I think they probably should not have been driving at that point. And I made it alive. I told them to slow down at least 20 times.
Not a bad situation. All right, so next is Tom. Tom, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Tom Hicks with Zico Rising. I've been in the industry for a long time, so I'm pretty much an open book. I mean, most people know me in the industry since I've been in it for so long. Something somebody doesn't know about me. I mean, Ben, I did the same thing back in the 80s when I was in the Army. I did a lot of hitchhiking through Europe, which was a lot of fun. I've got 63 jumps out of an airplane. So I was a Ranger when I was in the Army, and after I got out, I continued to do some free falling work. So haven't done it in a while, but my kids are now they're all ready to jump when we have a significant birthday. So I'm like, okay, I'm good. Let's do it.
Nice. Wow, that definitely Ben. As much as your story was great, I think Tom topped yours for sure. Yeah.
It's the benefit.
I'm older.
Not going first.
He's got time.
He's got time to catch up.
All right. Time.
Yeah. Will, welcome, my man. And and Mark, I haven't seen a Mark sighting yet, which is rare. The fact that you're on and Mark hasn't said anything, but I'm sure he'll be on here. But go ahead, my. Oh, you were on mute.
Got it. Yeah, no, I'm hoping for some light to medium roasting / trolling from Mark. But yeah, Will Nitze. I'm from Miami. I live in Miami now. I was in Boston for about 10 years prior. And founder of IQ Bar. We make plant protein bars that have things like lion's mane and vitamin E and magnesium in them. And then we also do hydration packets called IQ Mix and instant coffees called IQ Joe. But about 85% of the business is the Hero line of bars. And not that interesting a factoid. The best I can come up with is I lived in Cape Town for a year in 2010. Interesting things happened during that year. I was almost murdered, which was exciting.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Big time. Yeah. There's these like vans that you, during the day, totally safe. You can get to and from work and whatnot, and you pile in to this van. It's like, 15 people in this van that probably max should hold 6. But it's just common practice, and they're known to be pretty safe during the day. But there's a rule, like, you do not get in these vans after like 8 p.m. That is not kosher. And I had a few social tonics one evening, and I did not adhere to that rule, and it got pretty gnarly. But I won't get into that. That'll be for another day.
Wow. So Ben just got topped again. It was from
I feel like
hitchhiking
there's a plot for a horror movie here between the airplane jumping, the hitchhiking, and the murdering van. I feel like we've got a next season's Halloween horror movie. The plot's pretty much there.
Wow. Planes, trains, and automobiles. That's what we talked about today here. Okay, well, we're going to do a non sequitur segue from hitchhiking and potential murders to talking about CPG here, which can be really a tough business, right? People can get murdered metaphorically in this business because it's so hard, right? That was a really terrible segue. So when, I like to start with these types of questions, and we've repeated these questions before, but there have been, and this question is going to start, by the way, we're going to go round table and get everyone in we can here to make sure everyone's voice is heard. But I'm going to start with Will here, because I think this is a great question for you. There have been seemingly bizarre products that are not on trend that take off. What can you contribute that to? Is it the packaging? Is it just blind luck that some weird ass product that came out of nowhere takes off? Like, what attributes to a brand success when it's a really bizarre product that just comes out of nowhere?
What would be an example of that?
I think a good example of that, you really put me on the spot on this one.
Good job, Will.
Is
I can't speak
ask
to
the question.
yeah.
I think one that's like not on trend but still took off. Let's call it Dream Pops, right? I don't think
Sure.
ice cream, let's say, everyone loves ice cream, but it came out of nowhere. It's a healthier version and they took off. And then another one is like Belgian Boys, or Rip Van Waffle, like all these weird ones that weird names, and they just take off. And why do they take off? And they're not exactly, people aren't going out looking for waffles every day. So what attributed to like these types of brands success?
Well, I would start by caveating that it's irrelevant if anything takes off. It's not relevant in the long run. I think the more interesting trend to watch is, does it take off and sustain? Because it's just like, there are so many things that could lead to a blip in sales, like so many things, hundreds, right? It could be a YouTuber mentioning it. It could be Joe Rogan mentioning it. It could be someone had a recall and that shelf space opened up and XYZ startup was able to fulfill, product into a zillion points of distribution. And then right. Like there's so many things that are outside of just like macro dietary trends, like a keto or a paleo or whatever. I think the question is like, what causes those things to pop and then sustain and then sustain? I mean, my opinion is that things don't happen by mistake. There is always a reason. And frankly, I think it gets back down to like just like the boring blocking and tackling behind the scenes. Things will look commoditized, but the reality is, like, this is something I talk about a lot of differentiation. People focus too much on the product, right? How's the product different? And then you'll see these kind of seemingly generic products pop off, and you're like, I don't get it. It's not that different. Well, the reality is differentiation is the amalgamation of product, the ops team, how tight is your supply chain, what's your pricing power, are you a remote versus in-person team? Like, all of that aggregates into differentiation, whereas to the naked eye, you think, oh, is just the product itself different? And I think that's why there's like that mismatch in perception of something seemingly not that great or cool or different doing incredibly well. It's because under the surface, they are meaningfully different across a number of vectors.
Got it. Interesting. Switching over to Tom here. Speaking of, this is kind of opposite where Zico was on trend, right? Like coconut water. They actually created the category. He can tell me all about this, but way back in the early 2000s with Mark Rampolla, right? A friend of mine, love the guy. And so he created the category of coconut water, built it up, sold it to Coke. And then Coke basically, I guess, shut it down. I know there's a story to it. And then you guys brought it back and revived the brand. What has the experience been on taking a brand that, lack of a better word, has been somewhat damaged over time, right? I feel maybe the brand or the product itself or the quality when it was in different hands, not in the original founder's hands, taking that brand back and then rebooting it. What has the process been to get it back to where it was before and get the faith back in the consumers' minds?
Yeah, so a great question, and I'll tell you, it's been fucking hard, and it's pretty simple, right? So we at 12:48 on December the 31st of 2020, we bought Zico back. We did not have a business set up in Thailand, so we were not able to buy the Thailand facility immediately. So we had to work through a supply contract with Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is not, they're not easy to work with, as you may well know. Coca-Cola doesn't sell companies, they buy companies. So for us to buy a company back from Coca-Cola, the transaction was very difficult because we basically had to walk them through it. They made one big mistake when they sold us because I wanted all the 800 numbers that was on the package, and one was 866 say Zico, the other one was 1-800 say Coke, and they sold us that. They didn't realize it till 3 days after they sold it to us because they had 27 people in Atlanta who weren't getting any phone calls. We were getting all of them. You know, this is Joe. My fountain machine broke down, so we waited till they called us back. Funny story, but we negotiated about 6 vehicles out of it. But so we started the business. We were rocking and rolling in 21. Life was beautiful. We got product back in the U.S. In May of 21. Trader Joe's brought us back immediately. Albertsons, Walmart, all the big guys. We saved the UPC code, so it was pretty easy. We didn't have to pay slotting because luckily Coca-Cola had not incorporated Zico's UPC codes into the Coca-Cola system, much different than Hanson's and Hubert. And then in 2022, we got hit with a baseball bat. Our container costs went from, and Ben, you're aware of this, you were in the industry, you know what it was like. My case cost for just ocean freight only, ocean freight, on my 1 liter, my number one selling item, went from 90 cents a unit to 10.40. So my wife looks at me, she says, you're crazy. She said, you started a business during the middle of a pandemic, and then you got hit with the worst supply chain crisis in the history of the world. But we made it through. And quite honestly, 21, 22, and part of 23, because in 23 we dealt a lot with inventory overstocks with retailers like Target and Walmart and Costco. They all got hammered for their inventory situation because they overbought to try and protect themselves so they didn't run out. So they spent all of 23 getting out of their inventory issues, which hurt us in terms of trying to build the business. But we survived it. And now I look at 24, where we're at today, and it is really our second year, and we are absolutely on fire. The business is blowing up. We're doing great. We're launching national. We launched national with Whole Foods. We're in literally thousands and thousands of Walmarts. We're not full chain yet, but we will be soon. But yeah, the business is blowing up. So now it's fun. The first 2 years defined us and created a culture that said we will not fucking lose, and we're going to fight our way through it. So, I mean, I'm so happy that Chris Gallant joined us this year. I mean, as the founding kind of the CEO that got the business back, I took it to the distance that I needed to. And then my wife is like, you're working 60 hours a week. I don't want you doing that anymore. So I said, no, I want to do something I really enjoy, which is jumping back into the commercial side and really meeting with the customers. Once you get to a certain level, Chris spends all his time now telling investors how great we're doing, more money. Which is, that's always a challenge. I mean, we have a saying at Zico, it's ABF, always be fundraising. And we are. But the business is on fire this year. We'll grow 73%. We're literally blowing up and just having some great meetings with retailers as we got all this wind at our back for the first time in 3 years.
That's great. So I want to switch over to Ben here, and Tom talked a little bit about the business, and he said the C word, the Coke word, and I know how competitive this space is. Beverage in general is cutthroat. If you're not selling or in terms with a monster like Coca-Cola, so. What Ben? I'm assuming this, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the majority of your distribution is not done through DSD; it's through a wholesaler or something like that. What has been some of the biggest challenges in the space for you building your brand, which is enormous, and congratulations on your success. But what has been some of the biggest challenges you've had in the beverage space, given the competitiveness of it?
Well, I would say the first one is right at the front of the show, saying the name and what is Yerba Mate, for, many people. When I think about my family, I was in coconut water for a while and they're like, coconut water, what's this coconut water stuff? And then I go to Yerba Mate, what's Yerba Mate? So, I'd say first of all, it's like, we're creating a category and that is, that is a different endeavor than, when I was in coconut water. These guys had already created coconut water. I was just doing a slightly different version, right? A perishable, more premium version that is rides off the heels of all the great work that Zico has done, but does a slightly different version of that, right? Now I'm creating a category. I'm doing what they did years ago. I'm creating this category. So there's more work, and if you look at the type. The growth models and how you do it. When you do a better version of something that's existing, that's a different kind of model and can have different realities on how you market and the growth rates that you can experience. Versus when you're creating a whole new category and this concept of what it is, there's a lot more iteration on like, how do you talk about it? How do you get people to understand how to use it? Certainly in our loose form, that is, that really took a hit during COVID, right? Because often, it's consumed in a gourd, it's warm, that's nice during the winter months. But it's often shared, right? And so, not as many people were doing gourd circles and sharing a gourd, passing it, back and forth during COVID. So, that business is now starting to come back. So it's, you have all sorts of different types of trials and tribulations.
Yeah. Have you had any weird, I've being from the retail background at store level originally, there's a lot of games that get played oftentimes with some of the, do you have any stories with regards to games like your product or your shelf space being condensed down or disappearing? Any stories like that over the years?
Battle scars.
Yeah, it happens all the time. It doesn't matter what business you're in. You can be selling cereal, you can be selling whatever. The merchandisers are in there, the distributors in there, going in there. They're just refacing stuff, moving stuff around. So you really do have to have boots on the ground, especially when you're in a more discretionary or impulse driven kind of category. So, you think about chips, you think about beverages, you think about things like that. You want to be on display, right? You want to be in front end. You want to be in places where people see it and they grab it, buy it, consume it, immediately if possible. So, being in the perishable, right? For Zico, that type of thing, like you want to be in those places, right? Because then you have a chance of increasing that consumption. So that is tough, right? When you're going up against the big dogs, right? You've got Coke and Pepsi and KDP and they've got then the army of brands that they're slotting in there. And there's a hard wall and it's hard to break through. And they just, they show up at these retailers and these partners with buckets of money. And so it's breaking through, and they'll block you out. They try to get exclusivity in as many categories as they possibly can. So it's not only just in the retail store, but think about, going to a football stadium. Think about going into, you name the different settings, like they block you in so many different places. So yeah, that is a real challenge for more up and coming brands and those more challenger brands.
Yeah, I can definitely vibe with that. And it's nothing short of amazing when a challenger brand, it's cool to see the evolution, right? Where, they launch in 20 stores in their region, and then suddenly they start catching fire. They prove the velocity story. They get to 100 stores, a couple hundred stores, and they raise their seed round, a couple $1 million. And suddenly they're regional. Then they go into multiple states, and then half the country, then the whole country. I love those types of stories where you see an underdog that comes out of nowhere, but challenging an existing space and then succeeding at it and taking away market share from the big guys. That's what I love. I mean, that's so cool to see that. And it's cool that it started with a couple founders with an idea, right? So I'm going to really pivot over to Will. This is definitely a Will type of question relating to price.
Oh boy.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. It's not a softball, but it's not a hard ball. It's kind of a knuckle. It's a knuckleball. It's a knuckleball. It's a slider. So price elasticity. This really, like, when I see brands come on the market, it lack of a better word, it fucks with me, right? Where I see certain brands that have a very high price and they sell all day. Other brands have a high price and they go out of business because they can't sell. And then there's certain brands that have to be on point with the price that's competitively in the set. When can brands like stretch that elasticity and charge more? Because obviously when you're a younger brand, you need better economics and more margin. And how far can you go before pricing yourself out? Like how does a new brand, let's say a new brand, a founders out there, how do you figure out how far you can go up in an existing competitive set? Like what's your thought process there?
I think if you're creating a market, you of course have much more pricing power, right? Maybe Ben can speak to this, but maybe it depends on how readily a consumer can substitute your product for another product. So a good example would be Liquid IV, right? They weren't the first powdered sachet, but they more or less were on the hydration side. What should a sachet of electrolytes cost? No one freaking knows, right? And so you're going to comp it to like a Gatorade, and like, all right, we'll price it at $150 a stick pack. That's like a fat margin, right? That's like unnaturally fat of a margin. Why? Because no one else was really doing it. And then now it's sort of benchmarks to that, and there's a bunch of competitors, ourselves included, and it's just like you benchmarked to 150, but that was because they kind of created that market. Now take the other side of that spectrum, which is bars, say, fairly mature, whatever it is, $5 billion market, grows 4 to 7% CAGR every year. You just don't have that. Everyone kind of knows what a bar should cost, and you can flex up. Like Go Macro always flexes up more than other brands for whatever reason, and they do a great job at it. Why do they have better pricing power? That's a nuanced one, but I would say I actually have maybe a contrarian perspective on this, in that we try to figure out how to price lower, not higher. So we look at it the opposite way, because we've, in a number of instances, especially in brick and mortar, noticed that the velocity difference is just massive, like 30-40% difference. Like a Costco, our 18-pack was at $20.49 in one region, and then $19.99, like huge velocity difference. Like Walmart, our 4-count was $6.97. We went down to $5.99. Huge velocity difference, right? So we of course you need to keep your margin whole, but like we work backwards from what is a really sharp price point that can move a lot of units, and then how do we make that work operationally? Of course, there's a floor to that, right? But I think it's just like sort of a philosophical difference. And this is why I always harp on scale, which is like kind of a juicy topic in and of itself, right? Often people say, well, you don't actually get that many efficiencies at scale. And yet, that has not been the case for us. We have noticed substantial efficiencies of scale. And so I kind of always harp on like get to scale, like work backwards from getting to scale. It's riskier for you to not get to scale than it is for you to maybe jump a little early on a couple go-to-market opportunities. People don't think about the risk of not being at scale. They think mostly about the risk of being at scale. It's really risky not being at scale. You're going to be hemorrhaging money probably. So anyway, that's how I think about it.
It's a great insight. Yeah, that's something I didn't even think about where, you know, if you play it too safe, right, and you have a high price point, you're doing okay velocity, to not be at scale can really hurt you, especially longer term. You never get the economies of scale. You really never get the margins you're achieving to get to not only satisfy your own P&L, but also the investors, right? Your early investors that want to see eventual pathway to profitability.
But also think about all the hidden costs. People don't factor in the hidden cost of not moving units. They think, oh, this like XYZ is going to cost this and that. And what if I give up this margin? Yeah, well, what if you don't move units? Well, now you're scrambling. Oh, how do I get people in the store? How do I do this? How do I do that? Like there's so many hidden costs of not moving velocity that people don't think of up front. It's like that is not where you want to be operating off of.
Totally, man. I mean, we can riff on this for another 20 minutes, but like to me, one of the bigger costs, there's a lot of them, is merchandising. Like if you hire a merchandiser to hit 50 stores and you're paying them $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, now wages are going up, right? Because it's hard to find good people. $6,000 a month, $5,000, even if you pay base makers or dirty hands. If you're not moving proper velocity, then it doesn't justify the expense. That's the problem, right? Yeah. Hey, I just want to pivot to a couple things. First off, we're just going to re-mention our sponsors. I have a really great, juicy question for Tom, by the way, that I'm excited to ask. So, because this is a great topic that also ties in to Yerba Mate and to Ben's company as well. But we're just going to mention our sponsors here. So we have our weekly sponsor, which is WN Dean Advisory. Make sure to reach out to him just on LinkedIn, Waleed Nasruddin. You can message him directly. We'll also post, if we can, I think Wade will get his email up here as well. And there's his website, WNDeanAdvisory.com. And then he's offering a free 30-minute strategy session with Waleed himself. And also to boot, a 12-pack. I know I'm going to fucking drop this on my keyboard one of these days. It's going to get in the wire and just drop. Perfy. So he's doing a 12-pack. He's launching a crowdfunding campaign soon, which I helped him on. Boosting moods, not blood sugar, which I think is a great tagline. I think Perfy and IQ Bar could do some kind of collaborative thing there. So
Voss is a great human being too.
He is.
Oh, he's amazing. His story is so powerful. I actually cried when I first heard his story. It's just so powerful and what he's been through and how he's persevered and came out the other side as a very strong entrepreneur with a phenomenal product, right? That's expanding not only here, but also internationally. And then we have our ongoing sponsor, which is Range Me. Go to rangeme.com. Fucking nailed it, Wade. Jeez, right away. rangeme.com. You're like, for those that are watching, they went right on there. rangeme.com/CPG vibes. I got the R out and were clicking on it. And okay, so this question, again, going back to it, is for Tom. I see brands that stay in natural, conventional. I don't see, in all honesty, right, a lot of Zico and convenience. It used to be in convenience back in the Coke days. I'm not seeing it as much. The 7-Elevens, the Circle Ks, the mom and pop liquor stores. What's your strategy on breaking into that? And what do you recommend for entrepreneurs on when is the right timing to get into more of that C-store channel?
Yeah. So, and that, again, Alex, that's an interesting question. And our strategy has always been go where the scale's at to get the volume up, because to Will's point, you got to have the movement. But what's even more important is when you own your own manufacturing. When you own your own manufacturing, you freaking got to have the movement, or you're just sucking overhead out of your manufacturing facility that we have in Thailand. So we focused on the big box and going direct. Why direct? We've kind of stayed away from DSD, except on the West Coast, where from Seattle to San Diego back in the day was about 37% of Zico's total business. So it's a high concentration for us. We've actually stayed away from convenience on purpose and by design. Coconut water category is still underdeveloped. It's just now starting to grow in convenience. And for us to invest in DSD and lose that margin at grocery, I mean, we're direct at Albertsons, we're direct at Kroger, and we get the margin. And quite honestly, the retailers have taken a little bit of a different view on DSD now. I mean, Walmart, Will McDonald made a speech at Beverage Forum this last year that, unless you're red, blue, or a part of the KDP system, we're not looking to put DSD beverages on DSD trucks. So we're with Columbia Distributing up in the Pac Northwest, and Walmart, and Columbia takes in Vita Coco, they take in C2O, but Walmart would not let us switch to Columbia because they don't want to lose the margin. And he said, unless you can come to me with an economic reason that it's better for the consumer, we think our system's more efficient. So, convenience requires DSD, and we're just not ready to make that move just yet. Only in some target markets.
Is there a pathway eventually to start hitting 7-Elevens and Circle K's and all those guys?
As the category continues to develop, I mean, Ben will tell you, this is still a relatively young category. I mean, it went past $1 billion in the U.S. this year, $4 billion nationwide. Now it is growing like crazy. I mean, we've had high double-digit growth for the last 2 years. I mean, Zico's latest 4-week growth was 58%. So, I mean, it's been phenomenal, and we continue to see that. But I still feel like Vita Coco is laying the path for us right now in convenience, and they have the DSD system and the scale to do that. We'll follow when the time is right.
It's a great answer. Pivoting over to Ben, right? Where Tom was saying there's red and blue. I'm seeing a lot of yellow as well in these stores. I think the pathway has been really strong for Guayaki to get into these stores, but also get into the natural stores. So, what's been the distribution strategy for your company in the last, let's say, 5 years? What does it look like?
Yeah, and I think Tom brings up a good point. It really depends on the category you're in, right? So when I was at Harmless Harvest, you're talking now a niche upon a niche, right? Like a very premium product compared to, and then that category is not well developed there. Whereas when you think about teas and coffees and energy drinks and things like that, they are extremely well developed in the convenience channel. And so, when you're developing your strategy, your channel strategy, you have to think about where are people discovering, where are people shopping, and what kind of brand you are. So if you think about it, we have our history and our roots are really in the natural channel because that we are a brand that believes in doing better, right? So we have this regenerative business model, and that is like true to who we are. And so if you're a brand that sounds like that, you want to make sure that you have strength in that channel that helps define and reassert to consumers exactly who you are and what you stand for, right? So that gives you some legitimacy. But you also then have to think about like where, when are people consuming your products? What do they look for? And right. So, you need to pick me up, you stop in a convenience store, you pick up, whatever it may be, but that is what makes sense for us. So convenience is definitely part of our strategy. And then, from a brand standpoint, we're strongest on the West because that's where we were founded. That's where we were born. And that's where we spent so much of our early days. But now over the last several years, we've been expanding, right? So using not only retailers, whether it be the natural channel, kind of going national, but then even thinking about the other channels going more national. And that's where we're seeing a lot of our growth now. We're still seeing a lot of growth on the West, but as we continue to go east, that is really ramping up for us and makes sense, right? And we're at that stage where we're ready to expand and seeing incredible results wherever we go.
Nice. I've got a question that I want to go back to from Gavin for Will, but before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about branding. And my memory is, Will, and I want to actually ask this for everybody, but I'm picking on Will because my memory is not very strong. I had an IQ bar about 5 a.m. this morning, but I haven't had one since. But my memory is the last time you were on the show, and I please hold me honest to this. You were getting ready to change the branding that you added for Smart Mouse onto the packaging. And is that about right? It hasn't been that long, right?
I got to mention one thing also. I want you to tag on to that question. Bryson DeChambeau with IQ bar. How did that happen? Go.
Okay. Well, so I was going to finish the branding. So I want to ask everybody. We'll start with Will, but I want to just branding in general. We know Ben, it's yellow, right? It's Zico, it's traditional colors. Will, now you've got this tagline for Smart Mouse. Talk a little bit about that, and when is the timing to do something, whether it's packaging, whether it's the tagline, whether it's branding in general. I mean, Alex referenced blue and red and yellow. When's the right time to look at it, and how does that go about? We'll start with Will, but I wanted to hear from Ben and Tom too.
Totally. I'm definitely not an expert on this, but I play an expert on TV, so I'll give you my take. So I think you should be distinct, not beautiful, or distinct and beautiful. But I'd rather be distinct, not beautiful, than beautiful and not distinct. So there's this sort of movement of everyone in pastel, nostalgic colors, and there's like a convergence of design happening. And I think it's like you should run away from that as fast as you can. You should aim to be distinct, meaning memorable, both visually and catchphrase wise and or trademark wise, like as many things you can do as possible that are distinct, that lock into someone's brain, the better. So much more important than being beautiful. And so that's sort of how we thought about it. So like our trademark, right? Like we want to have like the IQ with the little thingies above the Q, like that's like a hook in someone's brain, right? 4 smart mouths. It's kind of a little tongue in cheek, kind of funny, not too funny, family friendly, like, but it's just kind of memorable, right? And so yeah, I mean, we just, it took a year. We did a whole rebrand, and certainly you want flavor appeal, and there's all like the table stakes, I would say, of branding. But ultimately, you have to get to a place of, okay, and now how are we just going to be distinct, especially in a bar set, right? Wade, like any retailer of size has just giant bar sets that are like, between 30 and like 300 SKUs, and how do you stand out in that? And it's just so hard. So it's an art and a science, and it took us a full year, and we didn't really do it and obsess over it until we were like 6 years in too. And that was partially like a financial thing. We didn't want to pay that much money to do it. It was partially a point where, a lot of people start online, us included, and it's just frankly not as important because you have so many digital levers to convert someone. And so it's just not prioritized. But then we had gotten enough brick and mortar distribution where we're like, whoa, okay, we need to, the 100K or whatever we spend is going to pay off in spades when you have X amount of MULO distribution, let's say. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Nice. Cool. Tom, what do you think?
So yeah, I mean, you're right. You need to stand out. I mean, we were lucky with Zico because we purchased a brand from Coke. Coke spent $100 million on advertising over the 8 years they owned the business. So our brand awareness, I mean, which is what you're always striving for, our brand awareness was second only to Vita Coco. We were actually ahead of Harmless Harvest. So but we didn't just take that for granted. We then said, okay, to your point, Will, we made an investment in an attitude and usage study because we want to know what consumers thought about us. And you'll start to notice that Zico is starting to change our packaging. I mean, the coconut water lives in a world of blue and white, and none of the coconut. I haven't yet had a blue or white coconut. So we're starting to move into a green palette. Pretty simple, not something that's out there. But when I was with Naked Juice, we did the same thing. We redesigned the label and we leaned in more with green because we're natural, healthy fruit. That comes from green coconuts. It comes from green plants. Green means you're alive. So you'll start to see our visual identity starting to change and moving more toward a green look. So we stand out on the shelf. We're not going to be in a sea of sameness. We're really going to look different. But the fact that people know the ZICO logo very well, we're just changing the way it looks and feels to give somebody something new. I mean, our categories become highly commoditized, and we try and drive a premium price because we're a no sugar added product. And to do that, we have to look different, look more premium.
I recommend, by the way, to read Mark Rampola's book, High Hanging Fruit. It's a really, it's a phenomenal book. And I think he's probably spent 3-4 pages, Tom, just explaining how he named it. Zico. So it's really cool. So check it out, everyone, and go to Amazon.
Especially for young entrepreneurs that are looking at getting into the industry. There's a section in Mark's book where he had gone through $1 million because he thought that was plenty. And I'll tell you, there's never enough money. And he was in his home in his garage in New York. It was about 18 degrees outside, and he was packing product to ship himself. So that was the low point. His wife was about to leave him at the time, and it was tough. I mean, beverages, when you started as an entrepreneur, it's very, very difficult. I mean, I did it myself once. Don't ever want to do it again because it is definitely challenging. I mean, all consumer products are challenging. I mean, bars, they're fucking tough, man. There's a million of them out there. And to stand out, it's hard to do. So for any of the young entrepreneurs listening right now, I have a lot of people come to me and say, hey, what does it take to start a beverage business? I say, if you got $10 million laying around that you really don't need. If you do, you can kick it off and get it started, because that's just to get you started.
Wow. Ben, any thoughts from you on branding?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Certainly, yes, you have to break through. It is about driving attention at the shelf. And so recognizing what things are is really important. And I think there's some good lessons there. Just, even when I think, for us, obviously yellow, right? That yellow can really breaks through. We're not going to walk away from yellow. That's part of our identity and something that's absolutely critical and really does stand out in that environment. If I think about Harmless Harvest, even when I was there, when we launched, and this is what, entrepreneurs and businesses have to think through, right? We launched into yogurts. And in the very beginning, we had kind of a similar kind of manifestation of our brand, but more applied to yogurt, which, in the coconut water, we use a lot of white, and then there's some black and there's some green, and then, the coconut water turns pink. And we leverage that, right? Except for when you look at that category as we, launched in there, shame on us, it's a lot of white. So how do you break through? And so sometimes, like I call it sometimes like matching luggage or not type thing, there are times where you have to recognize you don't want to do matching luggage. So like, Will, for you, like you're in different sets, right? Bars is very different than some of the other areas you operate in, and the realities of how you break through are different. So you have to decide what are the elements that stay the same, right? Probably your name, your logo, and stuff like that. You may reverse out or whatever it may be. But then what are the things that you want to start to change? So you want it to feel like it's still part of the same family. It may not be, twins, but now you're maybe cousins or something, or, you're just getting a little further away, but it works and is impactful in that category. I would say the second thing, so there's breaking through, but then just people knowing what you're buying and and thinking about decision trees, right? How do people actually, process and think, there are certain things that break pretty quickly in your decision tree, and it really varies by category, right? So it's like sweetened versus unsweetened, carbonated versus not carbonated. There are things that break, and the higher it breaks, as far as what consumers are looking for, means it needs to be more prominent and obvious in that, right? So when you start then thinking through your hierarchy, you want to make sure that you're thinking about how people are making decisions and making sure that it registers, right? So if you're in a very variety-driven category, which may be like, I don't know, soups or whatever it may be, like, do I want chicken noodle? Do I want minestrone? Do I want whatever? Versus in coconut water, it's a little less about variety, maybe, but it's more about some other aspects. So just recognizing that and applying that.
I think we might have lost him. Okay. Yeah, no, it's great feedback. I think it makes me think we're running out of time here, but it makes me think about the case study with Siete, which just got acquired, where they emphasized grain-free big time. And they knew it was a trend. They knew it was heading in that direction. Now there's like 1,000 brands copying that with grain-free. And then they were not the first. I'm not saying they were, but I feel like they're one of the first brands to make it important on the hierarchy, to break through to someone to say, holy shit, I don't want flour. I don't want wheat because I have gluten sensitivity or celiacs. I'm going to go for grain-free Siete. By the way, Ben, just this will make you laugh, but this is on my shelf, and I have a Zico one over there too, by the way, Tom. But this is from 2000. This is from 2013. For those that are not watching live, this is the Harmless Harvest bottle, and you can see the old logo. I'm sure you have this probably somewhere, Ben. Yeah, and it's 100% raw coconut water back in the day, and then the expiration date actually wiped away, but it's not even on here anymore. But anyway, I keep this on my shelf because not only with Zico, right, which I was drinking, but when I first bought Harmless Harvest at the store, and I'm like, wow, tastes really, 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 it's different. And so I kept the bottle. So, and obviously I went into the coconut business myself and kind of modeled ours after Harmless with a Nam coconut. So I thought you'd love to see that. So I want to ask one more question to Will. We're out of time, but just maybe in like 30 seconds. I know it's fucking impossible for you to compress it. Maybe you can. I believe in you. I believe in brevity. So Bryson DeChambeau.
Oh yeah.
I just, and for the context, just quick context, I'll say it and then I'll give the floor. Is I'm a big golfer. I don't get out as much anymore, maybe once a week at most, but I watch YouTube channels with golf. Grant Horvat, there's a lot of others, but one of them, and the most popular one, #1 golf channel right now, is Bryson DeChambeau, who is a great golfer, won the U.S. Open this year. So I was watching, and he, you know, they have the GoPro right on the golf cart as he's driving hole to hole, and he's eating an IQ bar. I'm like, huh, okay. And then I saw it again. I saw it like 4 times or 5 times. Is there something going on there where there's a partnership, or is he just go out and he's just buying it?
No, I actually don't know exactly how that came to be. Totally organic. Like never talked to him. We're trying to get to him, but
yeah.
So I'm told everything goes through the caddies. The caddies are like the marionettes behind the scenes. So our head of sales is tight with the caddy of Will Zalatoris, and Will Zalatoris crushes our bars. So actually, we have a little IQ bar hit on the side of Will's caddy's arm.
Oh wow!
And I guess maybe it went through Will. I don't know though. It was totally. I mean, I'm sure Ben and Tom can attest to like your product just ends up in random places, and you just get random messages like on a daily or weekly basis of like, oh, I saw XYZ with your product, and you're just like, okay. I've lost track of how it gets to. Like someone just pinged me last night and he was like, dude, I just ordered your bars in Singapore. I was like, oh, what? Like, I didn't know we were sold in Singapore. So it takes a life of its own at some point.
That's really cool. Yeah. And then I see, I don't know, man. I mean, golf courses, there's 33,000 of these in the country. So perhaps getting IQ bar through some of these networks, has that crossed your mind?
It's actually a really challenging channel. It's not consolidated, but I know because we looked into it because we were like, oh, this is great. Let's like hammer the golf channel. It isn't a channel. There is no like one distributor. Right. It's all these pro shops are separate. They all buy, and it's like seasonal too, which is kind of a bummer.
Right.
So it's very hard to have like a coherent strategy in the golf channel.
Big time.
I will say that there's one tip I can say is there's a company in Texas called Drive Shack, and this is, I'll make it public information. Drive Shack bought a company in El Segundo, California, that was managing all the golf courses in LA. So these private companies own the golf courses, and then they lease it back to the county or to the city. Then you have the TPCs, which are owned by the PGA. So those are harder to crack. But if you go to Drive Shack and try to get in with a buyer there, and I forget her name because I tried with Genius Juice a while ago, they operate, I think, 200 to 300 golf courses, and these are premier golf courses that are leased back to different counties across the country. But I will say the hardest places to get anything in are private golf courses, because a lot of times you can't even go through the fucking front gate, you know, to like drop it off. They're like, are you a member? No, get out.
I'm telling you, man, caddies
is the way in. That's how you got to Bryson. So, all right. So
one last question. I mean, who's going to win the Tyson Paul fight tonight? Is it staged? And if it is staged, then who's going to win?
I mean, you saw the slap that Tyson did. That was totally staged, but go ahead, guys. Yeah.
I'm taking Iron Mike.
Me too.
I'm with you, brother. I'm going to go with Iron Mike, even though he's labeled as the underdog.
Hey, underdogs and the comeback story, right? That's
it, baby.
I was going to say, I don't know so much if he's going to win, but he's damn sure who I want to win.
Oh my God, yeah, that guy's trained. I was real quick. I was in New York about 10 years ago at 4 o'clock in the morning at JFK, and I get this guy's in front of me, and he's got this giant hair, and he's got these flags, and I go, "Is that Don King?" And he turned around, yeah, who's calling? He had like 4 or 5 guys with him. I said, "You owe me money." He goes, "I owe everybody money." Why do I owe you money? I said, "Because I bought all those Tyson fights and they were over with in the first round."
Hilarious. All right, so we're in
if Tyson gets to him in the first or second round, it's over. If it goes longer than that, I don't know if he's got the legs.
Yeah, it's the endurance. I mean, he still has the punch, but
without a doubt,
energy's in the first couple rounds for sure. He's got to have an IQ bar and some yerba mate and a Zico. He'll be set. All right, so yeah. So let's go into our prize now. So we're giving away, again, our weekly sponsor for this week is WN Dean Advisor, running a couple minutes over here. and Waleed Nasruddin. So he's going to offer a free 30-minute strategy session, and then also a 12-pack of Perfy from Vasa Martinez. So you can win both of those. We'll do, I think, Wade, first question wins
Give them both.
WND. Give them both. One winner.
You win it all.
Takes all.
Yep.
All. Okay, great. So what is the question? Wade, do you have anything in the pocket?
No, I don't have anything in the pocket.
I've been mesmerized by how brilliant these people are here on our show. So I just did not write down a question. So
easy.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. No, this one's too hard because I don't even know the answer. Oh my God. Okay, I'll try it. How many times did Ben hitchhike? I think he mentioned a number.
He didn't give us. I don't think he gave us a number. Did he?
Did you give us a number, Ben? Yeah,
he did.
He gave us an over number.
Yeah,
like
he gave us an over. I was going for how many times Tom jumped out of an airplane because he gave us an exact.
That's
number.
right. Let's do that one. How many times? How many times did Tom Hicks jump out of an airplane? It was an exact number that he gave, and you win a 30-minute session with Waleed Nasruddin, WND Nasruddin, and 12-pack variety of Perfy. 3. That's not correct.
That's the last digit.
What country did Will hear someone saw his bar? Singapore, right?
I was going to say it was just a minute ago, though. So we're going back. We're going to the way back machine here. No, it's.
You can't ask a question like late in the episode. Like I can't be like, what golfer was eating IQ bar? You know?
Well, you can. You can. Oh, Gavin coming in
Boom.
hot.
There it was.
63. That's it.
63. Yeah, I was going to say Jasenia was really close there, but 63, and I remember that because Commodore 64 -1. That's all. But Gavin got it. Gavin got it. Nice.
I was thinking, and Will, you can relate more to me on this one. I was thinking Nintendo 64 -1.
But just for clarity, the hitchhike was over 100, right? Was it over 100?
Over 100.
He's muted. Is he muted? Yeah.
Yeah, I said at least 100 times.
Okay.
Yeah. At least 100. Yeah, I remember 100. I was thinking like round number, that could be easy to guess. But all right. So that's that. So if you're jumping out of a plane this weekend, have fun. And also make sure to email cpgvibes100@gmail.com to claim your prize. Thank you again to our ongoing sponsor, which is Range Me. So that's rangeme.com/cpgvibes. This was an amazing episode. I mean, these individuals know their stuff. There's a reason why it's called the Master Series. I consider them all friends. And thank you guys for coming on and participating and providing a lot of insight and value to our CPG community.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll see you next week, Friday, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock Eastern. And next week, as exciting as this episode was, it may not be as exciting, but it's going to be me and Wade, just the two of us. And the sponsor is Robert Kogan with Powerful Energy. So make sure to stay tuned for next week. And everyone have a wonderful weekend. Thanks again, guys, for joining.
Thanks,
Wade,
Alex.
take care, buddy.